handle the amount of water that's going there.
So it sounds like we're all in agreement that there's a problem. We just need to figure out the solution. So what, I mean, okay, this is a dumb question, maybe, but what is it gonna take to determine the best solution? Because we can talk about the problems all day long, but it's not gonna get us to
Wouldn't
a
it be a
solution.
water study?
I mean, it's not gonna, there's a number of solutions that were thrown out tonight that can work. It's not a complicated issue from my perspective, so if you want to direct us to do the design and come up with a solution, we're happy to.
And then we can make a decision from there.
The 7 houses or the 7 lots that Mr. Porter's talking about, will they have any effect, if they get built on, will they have any effect on what the current problem is? Does this-
Looking at the slope of that, just driving by, a portion of those lots do flow onto Vista Ridge, probably upstream of the driveway that they're talking about. So there will be some of that water that will go around the curve that's being proposed right now. But I would venture to say a good amount of it also will go onto the street and be caught by the curve that we're doing. Anything that flows back onto, what's the next, the Skyline, is gonna come back down and be caught by the curve that.
So that's an issue that if a developer is going to develop that area, that they be directed to take care of.
I mean, depending on if it's already been platted and approved, then it won't come back through review.
So it sounds like we just need to do whatever we need to do to figure out what the answer is. Because we really can't say fix it. We're gonna have to come back and, because it's gonna cost money, we're gonna have to determine where that comes from. We're gonna have to get bids for it. So, I mean, we can talk about this for 2 hours, but we're gonna come to the same solution that we can't do anything about it tonight.
I just have 2 questions. How many linear feet, Jim?
187 gets you just around the curve to the joint, the existing joint.
Okay. How many homeowners do you have in your HOA?
It's 21 lots.
21 lots, so that'd be 21,
Occupied lots, 21
no,
occupied lots.
no, not occupied. About 17 will be occupied when the current building finishes, those 2. And then we have 4, I believe I'm correct, 4 empty.
So could we just direct Chris and Jim to work together to review it, come up with what's the best solution, bring that back to us to review and discuss?
And that's kind of the direction I'm heading. Mr. Jocelyn.
Quickly, Mr. Deere, you're on the corner?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it looked to me like everything going towards Texas Drive could be diverted like into that creek area.
It does.
Yeah.
You know, right now, that thing is a dry creek bed, but when it really rains, that thing is extremely functional. If we didn't have that, we really would be a problem. And let me make another comment. And I know most of you have not been over there and seen it, but Tony and my house, we're probably at least 6 feet below grade from the street. You know, they've talking about having to redo the driveways. We're not asking y'all to completely remodel the driveway and this and that. I think if we just do the curb like they've done, extended down to the entrance to Easy Street, that would be a considerable improvement. That would make a big difference. As he commented, they got it backwards. You got a curb on the high side and flat on the low side. All the water's going across my yard.
Okay.
So that would take care of that side. The side going back towards the other direction.
Right.
To me, it looks like everything that goes there is gonna be funneled straight to your yard. So that's gonna be our problem. And if those 7 homes do come up anytime in the near future, it's not gonna be good. So I don't wanna have to fix it twice. So I wanna just look at this situation and fix it once, so.
Ms. Streeter.
He just said what I wanted.
Okay. Any other
Just go
comments?
in, look at the bigger picture, find solutions, and perhaps some of the funds might need to be paid by the HOA as opposed to just on the city, since it's only affecting a particular home. I just said perhaps. I didn't say anything else.
Are there any other citizen comments that don't say there's a problem? Because we've already established there's a problem.
So I just want to throw out there, if you guys need more video, photographs, anything for your study, if some, I think you got my email address, just contact me and I'll be more than happy to provide it.
So
Thanks.
how do we want to move forward, guys?
I would like to
Direct staff.
direct staff to come up with a solution along a big picture solution. So we're not coming back again, you know, a month after we just figured out a solution, realizing, oh my gosh, we got these 7 houses.
And then budget season is about to start, so we'll figure out how to pay for it.
Okay, so.
If-
Just one, should we include
Chris?
the additional development as well? Additional homes? Okay,
That's gonna be part of the drainage area that I'm looking at, and I'll look at it fully developed.
Okay.
That's the option.
Okay, so Ms. King, we don't need to do a formal motion. All right, so are we, everyone nod your head, are we
Yes.
good?
Yes.
You guys want to do? All right, let's move on to the next item.
Thanks, guys.
Just
Thank
stay
you.
there because it's still running anyway.
thank y'all.
All right, item 14, discussion, consideration, and possible
Thank
action
you, Mr. King.
regarding the bid
Okay,
award for
appreciate it.
Spanish Oak Kirkwood Water Main Project.
I'm trying to get my computer in the right place.
That's right.
Thank you. This is the Spanish Oak Trail Waterline Project. This is the ARPA funded project. It's a water line up on Spanish Oak Trail, water line crossing US 67. Then we had an added alternate bid to install a water line basically from the 67 intersection all the way up to the well site. We opened bids on January 4th. We had 6 qualified or official bids were received. We read those aloud, and the apparent low bidder is Excel 4 Construction LLC. They're out of Fort Worth. We reviewed the bid that they provided, and all the information, documentation required as part of the bid. The references they provided all appear that they're qualified and ready and willing to do the work. Their base bid was $560,582. Their additive alternate bid was $207,300. If the base bid and the additive alternate were both awarded, it would be a total contract of $767,882. I put that in the letter like that because I wasn't exactly sure the total budget. Discussions with Michael, I think we were close, but I wasn't sure which way that was going to be awarded. So you have the option to award the base bid and/or award the base bid plus the additive alternate. And the values you see on the letter are what you'd be committing to. We are recommending award of bid to Excel 4 Construction for the reasons I've stated here tonight, but I'm happy to answer any questions or expand on anything as needed.
Any questions for Mr. Hank?
Have you had contact with XL4 Construction in the past? They've done other work that you're aware of?
They've bid on other projects. I have never personally worked directly with them. I have talked with a few contractors who are somewhat familiar with them, and they stated that they have expertise in them. So
EHT work with them?
I don't believe so. Not out of our Granbury office for sure.
Any other questions for Mr. Hank?
I'm not sure if it's Mr. Hay or Mr. Lemons, but what part of the construction is money-wise is covered by the grant?
A little over $660,000 is covered by the ARPA grant. So the city would be paying for the balance of it. We do have enough budgeted from the figures that Mr. Hay has provided me. We have enough in our budget to cover the remaining engineering cost and the grant administration and the base bid and change order. So if you want to go that route. I believe that change order is a good project, is it?
Yeah, the additive ultimate bid was the water line along the highway from the well site all the way to basically Mockingbird Street.
Mr. Priest? Question?
No, I was thinking of what it looks like on the ground.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Hank? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any citizen comments on this item? All right, do I have a motion? Do I have a motion to approve? I'm not ready to read this. I have a motion to award the bid to Excel for Construction for the base and the alternate. Will that work?
Total would be $767,882.
Okay, so I have a motion from Ms. Harris, I have a second from Mr. Jocelyn. All those in favor, please raise your hand. 5-0 approved. Let's move on to item 15. Discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding a contract with Freeman Milliken Inc. for engineering services for the 2023-2024 Texas Community Development Block Grant Project. Mr. Williams.
So, council, we had discussed this last meeting, and Freeman Milliken received the winning score on the proposals, and we received a contract from them that the city attorney has looked over, public management, the grant administrators looked over. Contract looks good to everyone involved. Most importantly, this evening, we need the resolution that's in the packet approved so that we can move forward with our CDBG grant.
Any questions?
I've got a question. On page 143, let me get to it. Item number 8A. It says, this agreement shall be construed under and accord with the laws of the state of Texas, and all obligations of the parties created hereunder are performable in Johnson County.
That ought to be Somerville.
Okay. And the other question that I had was, on page 148, it has a place for the engineer's fees. Are engineer fees not included in the bid?
This is for additional work, if they had to do something additional to the scope of the project that we've laid out for them. The engineering for this project was done previously by EHT, and so we're hiring, we would be hiring Freeman Milliken to take care of the bidding process and the construction management. And so that is what their bid covers. If there was something else that were to come up during the process, we have these hourly rates that they would bill us for any design work that they might have to do.
So the engineer, we're not paying them any engineer's fees. They're going off of their bid based on EHT's engineer work.
They're not doing design work. They put in a bid in this contract of, I think it's either $20,000 or $25,000 is what they would charge to do this project. It's a $500,000 project, and so that's a fairly small percentage.
25 and then up to additional 20.
If they have to do design work.
Any further questions? All right, any comments, questions from the audience? All right, do I have a motion to adopt resolution number R 2023.01.10A?
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion from Mr. Johnson, second from who was the second? All those in favor, please raise your hand. 5-0 approved. Item 16, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding an ordinance amending the City of Glen Rose Code of Ordinances, Chapter 14, Appendix A, Schedule of Uses, specifically parking regulations. Mr. Lemons? Mr. Lemons, can I take this one?
Sure.
I'm still trying to get my computer there.
At your last meeting, this is the exact same thing that you guys had reviewed before. Unfortunately, due to personal situations, a number of you weren't able to stay in the meeting to have the discussion. So we felt, as the planning and zoning, McGree went back through what our recommendation was on the commercial retail spaces of a very particular type of retail. So it's not every retail, it is that small list. I think there's 7 items, 7 types of retail on it, that we had made the recommendation to move from 1 per 200 gross floor area to 1 to 350 gross floor area. D had left, Ms. Conrad, sorry, a written statement that Mr. Lemons read to the rest of council present. And the whole item, there was no second on the motion, because I think everybody felt that we needed a discussion about it. So we've asked for it to be brought back so that P&Z can give you more information and help you understand our theories so that a decision can be made whether you want to keep the 1 per 350, whether you want to keep the 1 per 200, or whether you have a different idea altogether. So that's why we asked for it to be back on your agenda.
Any questions? Ms. Harris?
I would just like to thank y'all again for doing this, and I appreciate the fact that you just took certain ones, because according to our mission statement and Mr. Miller's comment earlier, we aren't looking for Walmarts, H-E-B's, or anything like that. We're looking for the smaller retail businesses that aren't gonna have, that aren't gonna need as many parking spaces as Dollar General has over here.
Correct.
Which becomes a storm drainage issue. So I do appreciate the fact that y'all are working it with the green space that we've asked for in our comprehensive plan, to compensate the smaller retail businesses that might be able to afford to come in here and build. So thank you for your hard work.
I appreciate, because I know this was a lot of work to figure out.
We got a lot more work to do on the rest of it, but we focused in on that that small list. It is about the smaller retails. You're looking at floor spaces, gross floor areas of 15,000 feet or less. That it would be more in our niches of open lot spaces that we have. It would help somebody who already has a lot that maybe has a building that probably needs to come down and be rebuilt on. We really looked at it from a standpoint of, we examined major cities, we examined smaller cities, we looked at Meridian, we looked at Granbury, we looked at Houston, we looked in California, we looked in Virginia, we looked at how does our town want to develop? And what are the types of businesses we want to develop? And when we considered looking at these, we're looking for bespoke businesses. We're looking for businesses that are unique and different and more us. And so we felt strongly that the bigger businesses that are going to be more chain oriented, we're going to have different restrictions on. They're going to have more parking. There's ways that through parking, we can control some of the development of types of business to come in. And so while we can't say, Family Dollar, we don't want you here, or Dollar Tree, we don't want you here. I mean, we can say it as residents, but as a city, we can't control that. We don't get those voices. But what we can control is how much land do they have to put in parking? And is it going to be a business that needs 55 parking spaces? Or is it a business that needs 33 parking spaces? And when we looked at these smaller types of retails, the things that are, I'm just going to throw ideas out, a leather shop or a home goods, that's handcrafted home goods. If we take some of the businesses that are on the square and they grow out of their square space and move, what do those businesses need? And that's where we came back to, instead of looking at, do we go to usable square feet versus gross floor area? We felt strongly that gross floor area was the right decision because we can't control how much space they allocate to back of house versus front of house. We can look at how big the space is, and then based on that, giving them room for parking for employees, and then giving them room for parking for a reasonable number of customers. And that's how we all landed on the 1 per 350. But again, in the end, it is your decision whether that's the right number or not. But that's where we came to it. We did 2 meetings of research to kind of come up with a number that we felt comfortable would help our community grow with the types of businesses we want here. And again, it's only those 7 types. We still have another 150 to go.
Well, and so much of our retail and it's already on like 67 stuff, the lot sizes are limited.
Correct.
to What you can purchase, so we need to be able to accommodate smaller businesses, you know, to try and fit on a lot that they can purchase.
Correct.
Ms. Conrad?
Yeah, I don't know that I agree or disagree with any of that. I know you guys have done a ton of work, but I think it kind of connects to some of the stuff you said earlier, which I think that this is something that isn't an urgent burning platform issue right now. I do think it could be a potential future problem. So I think the timing to deal with this is probably when we have our comprehensive plan, we have our development person. Our comprehensive plan hopefully is, Michael, like 2 months-ish.
Well, it hasn't even, comprehensive plan hasn't even gone to planning. and
Yeah, I
zoning
believe
yet.
it's due in March though, so they should be,
Okay, well, that's 2 months. And
Yeah, that's
it's
what I'm
supposed to go through us and then back around. So you're
Yeah.
looking much longer than 2 months.
I will be taking that away, so let's do
Okay.
that. But we're also looking to hire a director of development. We're also looking, to your point is, maybe it doesn't need to be for parking, but does it need to be for green space? So I think that there are a lot of issues to look at and look at them from the bigger picture. And I think especially if we have a director of development whose job it is to nurture our comprehensive plan and grow it into, you know, the beauty that we know it can be.
You don't have a director of development. I'm just speaking
Do we have a
frankly.
massive, are we losing businesses left and right? We're trying desperately to
Right
grow.
now.
Right, are
And
we
it's
trying?
asking for, it has asked for a variance that would fall under these numbers.
Right, but that's not I mean, that's one, and that's
It's
my point,
one.
is it's not these businesses that we're out trying to get here, and so that's where our director of development is going to help. We
Okay,
don't have it yet, and we
do
need
not
it.
have a director of development.
We also don't have a burning problem. That's the
You're
difference.
asked, and this planning and zoning has been tasked to look at every single thing. We're spending hours putting things together and presenting to you our ideas. And if you're asking us to take a back seat and not work on these things until you have a director of development approved and then hired, then why are we doing anything? So I'm,
Yeah,
I understand.
prioritize, right? I still know that this is a priority considering some of the other stuff, because again, we're not
But it was sent to them and asked
we
them
didn't.
to.
yes, we did.
Oh, we did, that's right, we did, that's right.
We were doing this because we were asked.
They're doing it
That's
because
right.
we asked them
And based
to.
on what you came back with, I haven't heard anything, again, if we're trying to plan for the future. And the issue is, we're thinking about the future and thinking about the future and the potential of growth of other businesses, thinking about
I'm
those
gonna
things
tell you,
isn't
while
tomorrow.
these 7 items may not be the pressing, you've got restaurants, you've got a ton of other stuff that is in the works. And that from a developer standpoint, if we let them see what we have in place today, and it's not changed, they get to live under that today. So, doesn't matter what you're wanting to do, if they buy land and start developing it, they fall under the rules of when they actually pull their permits. So if we don't make changes right now, based on certain things going on in this community, then you're, I'm gonna say it, you're screwing yourself for the future. You can't wait, you need to take these things, and then as the comprehensive plan and your director of development come on board, things can be changed.
But if on one hand, we're hearing from our comprehensive plan loud and clear, and we hear every single meeting, people talking about, we don't want to grow fast, we don't want to, I'm not trying to be short-sighted, but I am trying to say that we have an opportunity right now to try to really be future thinking.
You're
and
right,
forward
but you're
thinking
being
and more
short-sighted
input.
because all the land that is already platted and all the land that already exists within our city limits, you have no control over. The only thing that controls that is what does the schedule of uses say? So not making a change right now is affecting today. Because while these 7 were saying shrink the parking needs, other parts of that schedule of use, we're saying grow the parking needs.
And so are we saying shrink it, but then do we perhaps want, instead of 20 parking spaces, we want 15 parking spaces and some greenery? Those are additional decisions that need to be made that aren't going to be able to be made in the future either. So my point is, if we start finding, I mean, my point is, everybody on here can vote however they want to vote, but we're sitting here hearing from our citizens that they don't want all these folks just coming in, and yet we're panicking because we aren't growing fast enough, and yet we're hearing we don't want to
We
grow
don't
fast and we're
want
trying
these
to manage
folks
growth.
coming in, but we don't have any say if the land has already been platted in the city limits. Taco Bell is coming.
It is what it is. That's
We have
right.
no
Yep.
control. We haven't seen a plat for Taco Bell. We don't know how much they're following the parking guidelines because the land was already platted. So they're following what is the parking guidelines in our schedule of uses today.
The most stringent, which is more stringent than what we're looking for in the
We
future.
talked about 7 items, 7 schedule of uses that is retail only. We're going back at our next meeting and we're finishing the 150 list.
Let me make sure, I think I'm missing something. I'm trying to connect the dot here. If we changed, you're saying if we changed our rule today, then if somebody starts building tomorrow, under which rule would they be working under?
If they hadn't pulled any
Right, they're-
permits, they're working under the new numbers.
Right, so that's my point. My point is I would prefer to stay more stringent and loosen it up when we get to a place, or should we get to a place that we need to. That's the distinction, but I'm not gonna panic over however we land, but that's the distinction is I'd rather stay a little more strict right now while we get all of our ducks in a row. And then once we know exactly what we're doing, we can.
As I said, you've heard what planning and zoning has been working on at your direction. You've heard how we have done all of our research and what we have felt matched what we have seen of and heard from the comprehensive plan. It is your decision.
Got it.
Ms. Harris.
Now, Dan, I think we've talked about this before, but this is the problem. You're not really, all we're doing right now by not approving these things, that we're giving them small little bits to take care of, all we're doing by delaying it, by saying, oh, we gotta wait till the comprehensive plan gets approved, oh, we need to wait until we get all this stuff. All we're saying to developers and builders is don't come here because we're not ready for you. We don't want you here right now. We don't need you here right now. So they're gonna leave, and they're not gonna come back. We just saw one leave tonight. It's probably not coming back. But all I'm saying, we're not saying, I mean, it's 7 items on there, and we have small lots that aren't gonna be able to put anything else on there. So are we just gonna tell them, sorry, if you can't put in 50 parking spaces, we don't want you here?
So then why don't we deal with those small lots in a variance?
Because he doesn't want any more variances. She wants to streamline it.
I recognize there's always a place for variances. We make them all the time. If it's an obvious need for a variance, we do it.
We
have lots of
tasked the
lots
planning and
that'll
zoning
never
people
be-
to do this.
Yeah.
Because somebody came in for a variance for parking, and we said, well, we don't want to do variances, let's send it to P and Z and have them do it to where we have a set rules, that way we don't have to do variances for each individual people that come in.
Correct.
So we'd already turned down a variance.
But when we
so
say
that
we
they
have
could do
these
something.
teeny tiny lots, then those teeny tiny lots make a business case justification for a variance. But when a business simply says, I'm not gonna reduce any of the square footage of my building, but I want you guys, or I'm gonna buy a plot of land that I can't build what I wanna build on and meet your ordinances.
And you have
then
to
buy a
adapt to
different
what
plot
I
of land.
want.
And I think y'all have the big dream and big vision, but you're not going about to where it's gonna be, where people are gonna want to come here, because this is, we keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. You know, I thought the comprehensive plan was supposed to be done in January, now it's probably not till March, April, or May. So that's more time that we have to wait. You know, we tasked the P and Z and Preservation Board from the very beginning to go ahead and start working on our P and Z processes, our variances, our parking, all of those things that P and Z handles. We tasked the Preservation Board to start on making sure we're getting things cleaned up prior to the comprehensive plan, because we figured out what our vision statement was. Yeah. We tasked them with those orders because at least I felt like they were capable of coming up with those decisions on what would be best. You know, if we're not liking what the P and Z, just like Pam said a minute ago, why are they wasting all their time if y'all just want them to wait until after the planning, until the comprehensive plan is done? Why are they wasting their time having, how many workshops do y'all have a month? 3? 2 or 3 workshops a month.
In
y'all can
theory,
go
we're
through all
much
this
closer
stuff.
to our comprehensive plan, but I will find out, because if they're pushing past March, then that is a different story. But the other part of this is there are certain things that we tasked them to do because it was happening and it was happening right now and we couldn't stop it. Subdivisions were coming in, they're coming in right now and we can't stop it, so we wanted to tighten and get more constricted.
And now we've
So
got
we-
development wanting to come in, but
Right.
we're holding off the development.
But we haven't, but we're not holding it off, what we did
Yes,
with,
it is.
what we did with subdivisions is we got tighter, not looser.
Subdivisions is fine, I'm not talking about
And so now we're
subdivisions.
doing, my thing is just, let's just stay tight until we find that is preventing us from bringing in the business we want to bring in. That's all I'm saying,
Any other comments up here?
I would say this,
honestly.
we have a subject property, and I think I'm right. That there is more property available, but the developer chose not to buy enough property to be able to.
That's not the
fit-
reason we
Wait,
made our
wait, wait,
decisions.
wait.
We didn't look at that
Let-
property
let
and make a
me- let-
decision on that.
Let me just say it, and then we'll hash through it again. We had a subject property that the developer didn't buy a large enough piece of property from, and then came to us with a variance. And then we said, okay, we'll relook at it again, and then now we're going to fit within what this subject property
Not just this
can
subject property.
allow. But it is.
It's only 7 different items for 7 different sizes of retail units. Not the whole city, not the subdivisions, not the retail, anything else. And I'm telling y'all, and y'all can vote however you want. I've been with 2 cities that have started growing and growing and growing from the beginning. And once you start telling people, no, you can't do this, that word gets out and people, we may have people coming right now, but if this continues, they won't be coming back. We won't have a choice on who we want to come here and who we don't want to come here.
I'd actually,
Hold on.
I'd like to recommend that you guys table this again and let P and Z go back with the entire parking plan.
To the whole 150,
Yeah.
157.
And
So
then
this
come
point,
back
you're
with
not gonna-
everything.
you're not gonna-
Okay, let's see what the citizens have to say, Shane.
Hi, it's Mark, 200 Second Street. This is the same thing you've been talking about this whole time. It's, again, yes, we're growing. We all know this. We've been growing since I moved here 11 years ago, 12 years ago. The problem is yes, you have this comprehensive plan that's happening. It's been happening for the last almost a year. You have a vision statement now. You know what it is. You know we're growing. You've got to make a decision. You've got to pick, do I want to control the growth so tight that I'm not going to grow at all because all of these people are going to get these words out and never come back? And yeah, you hear that they're never going to come back. Like McDonald's is never going to come back. But it's true. You're going to go, McDonald's is going to go tell whoever their big corporate friend is because they're all friends. We know that. And if that's fine, if you don't want a McDonald's, I get it. I've argued with people all this about all the time. But the problem is you're restricting parking spaces. Like, I get it. I understand that there's an order, but if they give you 7 things, 7 businesses in these tiny lots, like O'Reilly's. O'Reilly's lot was really small. They fit all their parking spaces and they're good. But there's like lots like where you're talking about, I know what it is. Yeah, okay, the guy didn't look that he bought a green space where his lot won't fit in. But what other lots do you have in Somerville County that maybe was reasonably priced? Because we all know how expensive retail is and you know how expensive things are in here. My question is, are you really gonna limit these 7 things and not vote on it just because it's 7 items that you wanna control your parking so much until somebody comes and somebody like breaks it open? Oh, we can have Walmart now and we're gonna give them 150 parking spots because we want to. But the Dollar Tree that came last week that you needed 30 parking spots for, you're not gonna let happen because, you know, we needed to grow now and not then. You have to start thinking about now, not 6 months from now, 8 months from now. You really do. I know you don't want to believe me, but happening now, growing it and controlling it now is the thing, is the priority. And yeah, you want to control it and hold it all in a little bubble until you absolutely have to burst the bubble open. When she's sitting there planning everything for you and telling you the recommendations that is actually going to matter because they're actually things you need to think about in a year, 10 years. And they took the time and broke down all the numbers, probably went through everything they could find and actually came up with a solid number. And it's 100 more square feet than what you were looking at. 100. So you're adding maybe 2 parking spots less, maybe 3. Like, think about your actual plan to grow and not just right now and constricting everybody.
Okay, do we have any other citizen comments on this item? All right, so do I have a motion to approve ordinance 2023.01.10E as presented?
So moved.
I have a motion from Ms. Harris. I have a second. Ms. Walker, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? So do we want to send it back to P and Z and ask them to look up some more?
At this point, I don't think we need to send anything back to P and Z, because the way it looks is that, the way it looks is it's just gonna keep going back to them until the comprehensive plan comes out.
They accomplished what I wanted them
Because we're gonna
to.
finish the 150.
Okay, so are we good? All right, well then let's move on to item 17. Discussion, consideration, or action regarding the adoption of an outdoor lighting ordinance. Mr. Evans?
Mayor, members of the council, this is something that has been a point of discussion for a while. The city has an outdoor lighting ordinance, but it's outdated. When it was adopted, LED lights weren't prevalent. I don't even know if there were any of them at that point. But since then, we've had an explosion of LED lights, and the temperature of lighting has changed. The color rendition is important. We used to have a lot of yellowish street lights that are softer, and now we have lots of these bright white LED lights. And so Russ Miller is here tonight, and he's with the Dark Skies Association, and he brought an ordinance that they recommend to address some of the new developments in lighting. And our city attorney has looked it over and made some revisions to the enforcement provisions of the ordinance. And so Russ is here to answer any questions you might have about the recommendations that are presented to you in this ordinance.
Do we have any questions?
Let's let him talk first.
Anything you'd like to add?
Well, I'd like to hear any concerns that you might have. And address those. Thank you. And, however y'all want to do it.
All right, Ms. Walker,
I have a list. I have a long list
is it a list of questions or a list of grammatical changes?
of questions.
Okay.
I read the ordinance, and just off the top, I will say this ordinance is more like a HOA type rules in what I've read. Oh, your porch light is the wrong type of light, it's non-compliant, you have 5 years to change it. There's a lot of stuff in this new ordinance. Let's see. Let's on page, I can go through it page by page. Just several things. One thing, okay, you have 5 years to bring your lights into compliance.
On the old ordinance, it was 1 year.
Let's see, it says that no light source should be visible from another property. Well, that's not possible. You're gonna see, I can see the lights outside right now. The greenhouse lights can't show, I'll go over everything what I've got and then we
Let's
can,
do it one at a time. The-
okay, well then,
the
you wanna go
light
to
source
pages?
visible from another
Well,
property.
hold on, before we get into a long, drawn-out conversation, do we all have issues with this ordinance? Is this something that needs to go and we need to work through it? Because I don't want to have an hour
As George-
conversation.
As George, I had very little interest with anything in this ordinance. If this is our existing ordinance and it needs to be revised, we should start here, because this
I
is
agree.
nothing like this. this is, you can't have a certain type of light, you can't, it's
Onerous.
it's beyond what I would be interested in. But I'm just George.
So, I mean, would anybody want to work on developing this? Because we're not going to have an
Yeah,
entire ordinance
so-
sitting here at 8 o'clock, so.
At the risk of offending people and kicking it down the can, I'm kicking the can down the road, as you like to say. This is again, one of those things that I don't think I agree with it. And in fact, I agree conceptually with working on our light pollution at every, forum that we've gone to for our comprehensive plan. I've had people talk to me about it. I've had people reach out and email to me. So it's clearly an interest, an interesting topic to folks. And it aligns with our vision statement. So I think this all connects. I don't know that being down a building official and not really having the capacity to enforce the codes that we would be looking at revising, that this timing is right. One of the things that I don't like us doing, that unfortunately we do sometimes, is we pass ordinances that are brought to us, but we don't really enforce them because we don't have the manpower, the hours to apply that enforcement. So I'd rather just hold until we do have our building official hired, and then they can work together to bring something to us, and then we can actually have people that can do something about it besides just pass an ordinance that doesn't get used.
Are there any other thoughts, other than things that need to be changed within the ordinance? I'm looking at a broad solution here because I don't think that we're gonna get through this tonight.
No, I think we need to table it, and if we're gonna change anything, work from our old ordinance and adjust it accordingly, but possibly after we have somebody that can work on it, staff also.
Anyone have any additional ideas on how to move forward?
No, but I don't think we need to wait on it for too long because, as we said, Dollar General is the one that's already in violation of the ordinance. 7-Eleven has lights that are way too bright. Exxon has lights that are way too bright. So the longer we wait on this, the more new buildings are gonna come in and.
Okay, so do we send everything to committee? Do we want to send it to a committee so that we can work through it?
Wait, question, because I hear two different issues. Are they meeting our current code requirements, but it's just bright as heck? Because I didn't think.
No, they're not
So
meeting
that's I don't think we have to do a new ordinance if they're, there's one that looks like I told George, it looks like a spaceship coming down 67, like a spaceship.
That's what I'm saying is as we get more things wanting to come in and build, either we need to make sure we have something in writing to tell them, you can't put these kind of lights in here, when they turn in their plan, or.
People are, as they should, replacing their energy hog incandescent lighting with energy efficient LED lighting. Problem with that is the LEDs are much, much brighter. They don't realize that. And as in just about everything else, they think better is more, or more is better. And so, they buy the biggest light they can and they put it up, and then it trespasses on adjoining property. It shines in the light in the eyes of the drivers coming down 67. It's a nuisance.
What I'm hearing from the majority of the board is that we want change, but we don't think that this ordinance is the change. So but we need to do something quickly. So what's the answer?
This is not a HOA type deal at all. It's enforcement is by the building official.
Mhm.
And on any new construction or remodel jobs, the person that's trying to do that has to get a building permit. Okay? It's spelled out in that building permit what they can and cannot do on lighting, and they have to provide a plan of their lighting, which has to be approved by the building official.
So to Councilmember Harris's point and Councilmember Walker's point, can you want to work to look at the existing one and apply revisions? And in the meanwhile, can we direct, I don't know what steps have to be taken. I think there's like some light testing or something that has to, for the folks that are already out of compliance. Do you think that?
Didn't y'all just do that, Russ?
We have,
Yes,
No.
we did. I found a lighting engineer
Okay.
in Austin And, he was low bid. And we brought him up here and I rode with him for about 6 or 7 hours. And, we measured the light levels at all the gas stations and other places that appeared to be non-compliant, a lot of hotels. And just about all of the places that we looked at were out of compliance severely. A lot of the gas stations had 5 or 6 times the allowed level of lighting.
And you're talking about our current
Yes.
Yeah, so being.
allowed for our current one.
Yeah, it's a completely different issue than changing.
Right, right. But if we need to do both, we can run parallel paths.
But if we already have a current ordinance that they're not in compliance with, then they fall under it anyway.
That's an enforcement issue, Mr. Lamar?
Yes, and we have plans to issue letters to existing businesses, but what we ran into was with the Dollar General, and they built their facility according to our ordinance. And they did a couple of things wrong, and we're gonna be able to correct that. But there's some things that they did that are not a violation of our current ordinance, but they would be a violation of this ordinance here if you adopt it. And Mr. Miller went with us out to the site, and both Mr. Millers. So, and you know, one of the things we wanted was for them to change the light from 5,000 K to 2,700 K or maybe 2,300 K. So that 5,000 K is that bright white. But we had no tool to make them. We had no tool to make them do that. And so they're only going to do what they have to do based on our ordinance. And also the wall packs on the walls, there's some light trespass there, and we wanted a shield there and to change it to the yellow light also, but we couldn't. And so we found that our hands were tied. And so if we're gonna start enforcing, it'd be good to have the full set of tools at our disposal.
That makes sense.
By this new one, the lights on the front of the courthouse would be in violation.
Yes, there were.
But, I mean, that being said, the new ordinance would apply to future builds, not current. We can't retroactively.
No, it
It
says within
you
5
will-
years,
you
they
will-
have
you
to
will
be
comply,
changed.
And then you have a 10-year grace period beyond
No,
that.
5 years.
This is beyond the pale for me.
The new one.
This
Okay, well, so
proposed one
Yeah.
is,
We've already decided that that's not gonna work. So the answer is, how do we fix it?
Gotcha.
So we can go based off of the old one,
Okay.
but add in the things that we're running into issues
Yeah.
with adjusting, because I know some of them is the lights are bright, but they're also turned up to where they're not just facing downward, they're
Yeah, they
out
need to be
and they're
facing-
invading people's houses and.
If they don't face down, if they face down, they would be better, but
Yeah.
Okay, that makes, if we're looking at enhancing our existing one, based on that, taking that, sitting down with you and the issues that you've addressed, that you've encountered and said, okay, how do we fix those two things?
For you.
Mr. Lemons, because he was talking about. So if y'all can work on that and bring us something like that, and then we can start enforcing it sooner rather than later, that's the trick, is when we do these changes and then we don't do any enforcement, then we undermine all the work that we've done. So it's for naught if we don't follow it up with enforcement.
So
Which is nice and
Is
pleasant.
the consensus kind of that we direct staff to try again, basically?
If I may, I've already gone through the old ordinance, which I helped write in 2001, or I wrote in 2001. And that was an IDA model ordinance back then, and it covered everything that needed to be covered back then, the way technology was in 2001. That's changed.
A little bit.
So you go back to that old ordinance and you pick stuff out of it here and there, and you put it in the new one. The new one is a recommended, IDA recommended lighting ordinance that meets all their requirements to be a dark sky city. And tied to that is Dinosaur Valley State Park and Fossil Rim Wildlife Center that are applying to be dark sky refuges or parks. And Dinosaur Valley can't make it because of the light trespass from the city makes their place too bright with the monitors that we installed to monitor the dark sky levels. And so they're kind of screwed until the city can enforce stuff. Fossil Rim's far enough out that they're probably okay.
Well, but if the issue is that they don't qualify because of light trespass, because we have buildings that are not in compliance, that's one issue. If it is because our ordinance isn't strong enough in order for them to be in compliance, if they are following the rule, that is a completely different topic of conversation. And it sounds to me like the issue is not that our ordinance is the problem, it's the fact that we have a whole lot of people that are not in compliance with that ordinance.
At least we don't know how much our ordinance is off.
We don't know.
Right? It's kind of one of those things you enforce and then you go, okay, now that we've enforced, where does the gap still exist? And I think that the rub here, and I've certainly heard it from Mr. Freeze before, is we have to be careful about overreach and we have to consider safety. So sometimes it can't be as dark as we'd like it to be because we need a light at the ATM. I think there's a balance here. I think we can strike it. It's really just looking at if the goal is to meet dark sky compliance exactly what they want, I can't see that happening because we have to balance the needs of citizens driving safely. There's certain stores I pull into that I never know if I'm actually going in the driveway because it's dark. So we have to consider some of those things, which frankly are just outside of the purview of like a dark skies initiative, not their problem to solve for. So we have to balance those things. So we may not be able to meet all of the stuff. This light has to get turned off at 11. You know, you can't use a shield. Well, maybe we say, look, a shield will suffice for us. So I think that there's a happy medium between keeping folks safe, giving them the light that they need, reducing the excess and reducing the pollution wherever we can, but not doing it to where we are disenfranchising folks from being able to make some of the decisions they need to make. So somewhere between these two.
Well, shields
probably
are
something.
required in this ordinance.
Okay.
And the way you keep people from seeing the light source from an adjoining property is you put a shield around it. And that directs the light down instead of out. And the goal is to not see the actual light bulb itself. And LEDs aren't necessarily called bulbs, but everybody knows what a light bulb is. You don't want to see the light bulb. It's okay to see the lit ground, but not the bulb itself. The bulb causes glare.
Well, I'd just like to give an example on that. Is at the Expo Center, we had a movie night at the Expo Center. And we had tried to cover the windows there, but that Sunoco across the street, their lights were so bright that it was coming through the cloth coverings and you could see the light bulb or LED.
But still, it's an enforcement issue, it's not an ordinance issue.
Exactly.
Yes.
But to what Mr. Lemons was saying, and I think that's the problem, is if we're about to enforce, then do we want to see where we want to land and then we can enforce once, right? Isn't that basically what you're saying? Right. So, but we shouldn't have some massive drastic changes, I would
Yeah,
hope.
it's all of the signs that are inlit, signs that have a white background, according to this, would have to be changed.
Well,
So that's
we're
too
not in the
expensive.
nuts and bolts of it right now, we're just trying to figure out overall plan. Mr. Miller, do you have something you want to add?
Yeah, this is my world. I work with some of the top engineers and lighting experts in the world. And the world is changing, so I think there's two issues. One, enforcement of what we have. But what I'd like to recommend is just be curious and learn where the world is going in terms of lighting, because there's a big health issue involved in lighting as well. The disruption of sleep, the 5,000 Kelvin lights out there. If you are exposed to that, then your whole circadian rhythm is knocked off. So I deal a lot with interior design, mental health issues. I work with the International Well Building Institute, which are bringing these new standards in. I think it's an opportunity to learn and be curious and not try to go down into the weeds and pick this thing apart. So there's two parts. There's enforcing what we have, but then going back and looking at it holistically as a new way to think about this. Because I don't think what Russ Miller has presented is contrary. It doesn't have to be contrary to being onerous. There's got to be change overall if we want to live according to that. But we need to learn our way into it and not think that we've got all the answers right now, because what I'm listening to here, I work on 50 large construction projects across the country a year. Federal Reserve Bank, military projects, hospitals, they're talking about what he's talking about. So we do have an enforcement issue, but, and I think the Dollar General is a great lesson. It's a good example of a bad example of what we don't want.
I had never been over there at night.
Mr. Lyons?
Since this gentleman is volunteering the information, I wonder if we could recruit him to help us.
Now with it.
Not the same thing.
Uh-huh.
Well, I can help bring the experts in. I'm not the expert, but there's plenty of good ones.
So I think why it's rubbing everybody the way it is because you're taking what we have and you're completely trashing it and you're starting there. I think if we can take what we have and build on that to incorporate the things that are in the new one, everyone's not gonna be like, oh my gosh, this is changing everything. No, it's not. It's just adding some additional. Is that,
Yeah, I want it to be as dark as it can be and as safe as it can be.
There you
That's
go. That's a good mantra.
yeah.
Cheyenne?
I really think that the problem with the new one is that it's, you read it and it sounds super, super strict. You're like, we have to comply to this license thing with this,
HOA
which,
thought.
it's not necessarily, I think, what they mean. They don't, but yeah, you wanna have a shield that covers a light bulb like that, but honestly, does it have to be that, like, yes, it has to be strict, but does it have to be that strict? Like that, you're that stuck to that, like tying your hands and you can't do anything. But you gotta do something, because you have all these other people coming in and you need to.
But there has to be a rationale behind it. There has to be a rationale, there has to be an education period of why these standards are important, instead of just writing something down. Nobody knows what it means, nobody knows the context of it. So I think there's an opportunity to go back and create a narrative around what we're trying to accomplish and why, and how do we make the transition, instead of, here it is, the old, and then all of a sudden we plop in this new future thing and everybody goes, oh.
Well, at the risk of eye rolls, this segues beautifully with our comprehensive plan and how we're gonna communicate out, and we're gonna do a communication plan. And so we will be able to, we need to do that, and we hopefully will be able to do
I
that.
think you need to enforce your current plan, but I understand what Michael's saying about if you're gonna make small changes, do it so we can go to them once. But you have serious
Yeah.
light pollution problems that are just not being enforced right
We
now.
don't even know where we're at. Like that
Right,
mayor
so
said.
if
We
you
don't know where we're at now.
got to do that before you can really look at the rest of it.
And how do you test how many?
Let's just
Oh, there's
work on
there's
it.
meters.
Let's
I
direct
mean,
staff to work on trying to
Dollar
create
General's out of
something that would
spec.
work. That's, the language is not quite so harsh, it's a little softer language that builds on what we currently have and incorporates some of the new things.
And can we direct, so with that in mind, should we be directing enforcement immediately?
Well, we
Or-
already are.
Yeah.
We-
I don't know if he's got it
Dollar
collected, but
General,
what we're gonna do.
The Holiday Inn needed a certificate of occupancy, we made them aware of the violations. But they weren't gonna get a permanent certificate of occupancy until they correct their violations.
Beautiful.
And
But all the
you
gas
can make
stations haven't
notice,
been told.
Yeah.
Here's where we're heading and why, so get your house in order, and then,
Yeah.
you know.
And then report it.
I agree that this might actually be a really good opportunity for us to say, hey, we're looking at making these changes. Let's invite the businesses so that they understand, instead of just
That's
see this
awesome.
new letter that says, hey, you have to change all this in 5 years and it's gonna cost you $10,000.
Yeah, it's got in mind.
Let them have
At least it was
A
five.
seat at the table.
a seat at the table. Let them be able to express their concerns and provide feedback to what we're doing. And if they feel like they're a part of the process, compliance isn't gonna be as big of a problem as if you just say, do it now.
Right.
On the signs, we're having to replace them in 5 years. You don't have to replace them on most of them. All you have to do is replace in that time period, badly yellowed plastic cover that's over them. And probably change out the light inside to be something a little bit dimmer than what it is. Most of it's fluorescent lighting now, and it'll be changed to LED one way or another. And it will be changed to LEDs. They're probably brighter, and it's going to exceed the brightness level. The plastic front to the signs can be replaced rather cheaply by any sign shop. And they'll need to change their background color. It might be black, it might be the other colors are red or a little white here and there, green, you know, anything except, you know, bright light.
Just a quick question. Do either one of y'all kind of know what the cost of these adaptive controls run?
Cost of,
Adaptive controls.
it depends on
Like an attorney's answer.
how much you want to do with adaptive controls, how much do you want to do manually or with a timer. Timers are cheap. They have photocells that have timers built into them, so it will make the light come on at dusk. Instead of going off at dawn, it will go off at roughly 11 p.m. Be dusk plus X number of hours.
So it depends.
And those
the
are about
cost depends on
$30.
What kind and which direction you want to go with it. Okay, do we have any citizen comments on this item? Ann, do you have something to say? I know you do,
Yeah.
but do you have a comment on this item?
I just believe that several times over that you have suggested that you make the motion to send it to staff with the current ordinance that we have to enforce that ordinance and to take the new ordinance and compile a future ordinance with it, and that you asked Mr. Rex Miller if he would like to assist with that. I think that was made previously in some of the discussions and it got sidetracked, and I think that we have that motion on the table somewhere, don't we?
Well, it wasn't really a motion, I just asked if we wanted to direct staff, but I do agree. So,
Okay.
are we ready to direct staff? Are we all in agreement that that's how we want to move forward?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Lemons, you understand the assignment?
After
I
all
don't
that.
know that I'm gonna have, I mean, the timing is a problem. What do I do? Do I do the enforcement? Do I work on the ordinance?
The enforcement is obviously going to take precedence over the
Yeah,
ordinance.
enforcement.
Right.
And we have a timing issue with IDA as far as applying to be a dark sky place this year, because they have a quota that they're close to meeting, and we're not going to accept any more applications after that.
Well, then that just, let's do enforcement, let's work on the ordinance as well, but enforcement needs to take precedence. We really don't know what problem we have, if what we're seeing are people that aren't in compliance in the first place.
We're just dark after it got.
We might be there.
Yeah, we might, yeah.
Are we good?
Yeah,
Let's
yes.
move on. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Miller.
One of the things on the existing ordinance is, it doesn't cover the color temperature,
Okay,
so you get the bright white blue light that disrupts the circadian rhythm. And it's not just people, it's insects and animals,
and y'all can address that in your work on it.
and I'll be happy to assist y'all. Let's get started.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for your hard work.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to item 18, discussion, consideration, of possible action to execute a task order for the city communication plan. Ms. Conrad.
This is just a simple, yay, let's move forward. I'm gonna take you back to one of our budget meetings, and Abra joined us for that budget meeting, and we talked about next steps. And we had highlighted in our strategy plan, and we have heard from everyone under the sun that communication is an opportunity. And so we had already previously budgeted to start a communication plan. I talked to Abra about that, and she said that the timing works, they can start working on the communication plan as before, I said, do we need to wait? Is there dependencies and we need to wait for the comprehensive plan to be finished? And we don't. So we would just execute a task order, and that would then be because we've already budgeted to do it. My understanding, and Mr. Lemons, if we need to do something different. But from a perspective of, I guess, because we've already used them as our vendor, they're already the person that's going to be doing this for us. So now we just need to say, okay, we need you to do this next task, which is our communication plan.
Mr. Lemons?
It is in the budget, and if you want Peloton to be the one to do that, that's certainly the council's choice.
Questions, comments up here?
We've got $228,000 budgeted for this
15,000 is all we're talking about, the communications plan.
Just to refresh memories, because when I tried to remember this, I'm like, I know that there was a list of things, but we only selected
Okay.
some of them. So I wanted to give you all guys visibility to.
I didn't remember doing all of that, and that's why I was like, wait a minute, it's all on here.
Yeah.
So we're only talking about the
communications plan.
$16,000 communication plan that's already budgeted.
That's right. We, during budget, they provided, Administrator Lemons provided us a list of, I'm gonna guess, like 10 things to do. And of those 10, these are the ones that we selected these are the ones that we selected to move forward with. And the communications plan is in there. So I was trying to remember it, so I thought I'd give it to everybody else in case you're trying to remember it too.
Any other questions, comments up here?
Man,
Any questions or comments from the audience? Okay, what's the pleasure of the council on this one?
Actually, I'm sorry. When you're talking about a communication plan, I'm assuming you're gonna be using your website as part of that.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And so you previously approved a new website company and all that, and I noticed we're not on that. So are we?
Oh, it's
all
different
this time
entities.
being-
It's different entities.
I understand.
Oh, okay.
But don't you have to have don't you want to use your new website as part of your communication plan for your new comprehensive plan so that everything's kind of looking cohesive together? So I'm just saying, we still look dinosaur amateur cartoon, and you're talking about something that's really about a comprehensive plan that's about the whole new city. If you're gonna direct anybody to the website, you really should have your website.
The communication plan isn't gonna be done anytime soon. Yeah, this is a task order to start it, so
Okay.
yeah.
I'm just,
Yes,
The
for
website-
sure, yes, we don't.
The
want-
website's in
yes.
progress, we're talking
Okay.
6 to 8 weeks
Okay,
at the
perfect.
longest, so.
I just wanna make sure that we're,
No, you're right, we don't wanna try to
Tying things
communicate
together.
and then send them to something that we believe to be ineffective communication.
correct.
And then 404.
Yeah, and they get a 404.
404 in March.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, ma'am, good guess.
Any other comments? Okay, what's the pleasure of the council?
move forward.
Move forward. So I have a motion to execute a task order for the city communication plan by Mr. Freeze. Do I have a second?
Second,
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Ms. Conrad, all those in favor, please raise your hand. 5-0 approved.
I know it's not on the agenda, but can we get some more air conditioning?
I'm glad I wore my long sleeve shirt now.
It was hot in here earlier.
It's freezing.
I saw some, I watched Rosario get up and push that button.
Don't turn it up too much there.
All right, let's move on to item 19, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding the creation of a development director position or entering into a contract for such services.
Okay, so that sheet is in.
So this is, we talked about this in a previous meeting. We have budgeted a director of development position. That title is subject to change if there's a better idea. We had it on our city council agenda. I believe two council members weren't here perhaps. And so, I think that's right. And so we, pushed it to move it here. So what you see is, a director of development job description that everybody's had for a while now. And it's a compilation of pulling development positions that were posted on TML, different types of development, and kind of pulling through with thanks to Ms. Streeter, I did see one thing that needs to be removed. It's a lot, and I'm aware, it was with two things in mind. One is it's easier to remove stuff than add. So thinking you guys could go through and say, hey, I looked at this, I don't think we need this, et cetera. And then the other, because I know I've learned that we can't make changes to job descriptions once we have folks. So I'd rather have more tasks listed that we may not ultimately place on their plate to do as we kind of manage capacity and organize tasks. But for the benefit of the flexibility to change some stuff in the future, that was the other thing. But clearly we can slice and dice this and shred it however you'd like. I just wanted to give you something to just have hopefully as much as possible, and then we can change remove whatever is needed.
This is the revised one from last time.
We didn't revise it from last time because we didn't talk about it. We spent our time last time on the city administrator one, with the city administrator and the building, the director of development. And I don't recall, I recall us saying we could just hold on this because there were more of us here.
Well, the reason we moved it is because we had alternative things to look at, which is why Retail Strategies came and talked to us, because that was an alternative to
Okay.
bringing on a company to do the economic development side as opposed to putting that on development director. That is why we changed. we moved
Okay,
it.
okay, but everybody wasn't here though, right?
Everybody wasn't
Okay.
here, but you had city administrator.
Got it.
position, which
Oh,
we did
yeah,
modify,
that's right.
And then you had director of development position, which we decided we would wait.
Perfect.
Thank you, ma'am.
I knew something was wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and, wait a second. Oh, that, org chart is in the wrong spot.
Yes, ma'am. It's above, it's, I think, above
Above the
instead of
agenda
below.
item.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so has everyone had an opportunity to review the job description? Does anybody have anything they'd like to change and delete?
I can tell you one we caught, page 188. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
What to start with? The director of.
8 from the top, it says the director of development will also manage permitting, engineering, GIS, building inspection code, et cetera. That should not be in there.
Wait, before we start digesting this, we had the other half of it, which was retail strategies that came in and we
Oh,
were
that's a good
talking
point.
about potentially hiring them to do economic development as an outside source. Is that something that we want to consider in lieu of? Any
I was
comment
not interested
from
in.
anybody?
No, I wasn't interested in what I read with them.
Anybody up here interested in going that route? Nobody else is even moving. No head nods, nothing. No, no? No?
I think after the presentation, you know, they're mainly for larger retail.
Mhm.
And it's quite clear that we're saying we don't want larger retail right here.
Okay, so,
And there wasn't any industrial or manufacturing. So I think they're not that you're not good. I'm sure you could probably get us a Walmart, H-E-B or whatever we wanted, but we don't want that. So that's kind of my take on it.
okay, so.
Really, really cool, just not right for here.
Not right for here. Is the rest of this conversation going to be modifying this job description?
Y'all can just tell me what to delete and I can,
Well, I'm asking for a reason.
Yeah.
I realize that it's not coming out that way because it's late and I'm hungry and I'm tired. I get a whole lot more direct as we get later in the meeting, so is the rest of the conversation gonna be talking about the job description? And if so, then I'm gonna see if the audience has anything they'd like to add.
that's all I have.
Okay,
Oh, you're asking, okay, I thought you were asking everybody, so yes, no, that's all I have.
I was asking everybody. Does anyone else have any objection to me asking the audience? Okay, Cheyenne.
Okay. I just have a question. Is this in replace of an economic development director? Like, and currently, do you have an economic development coordinator or director per se?
We
No?
currently don't have one and they would serve some of that function. It's gonna be a bigger capacity than that. So yes, economic
You
development.
don't
would
have
be
an
a-
EDC?
We don't have one right now. And
Okay.
economic development would be a component of their job.
Okay, that's all I want to know.
Obviously, Councilman Conrad and I have spoken about the needs of growth and somebody to shepherd it through. I was able to look at this job description and I do feel that there's a lot of things that need to be reviewed. And so I just order of placement, but also just a bigger understanding of what some of these roles that are being placed on here. And I understand her decision or of saying, put everything on and then look at it, but I am familiar with jobs like this. I have somebody who actually does jobs like this, and I think that it would behoove Ms. Conrad and the city council to step back from this job description for a week or two and make some other refinements before you guys fully hash it out.
I have no more work to do on it, but I'm happy for y'all to hash it out and give it back to me.
I just think that there's a lot that is confused with different positions of what roles you really want somebody to take on this. If this
Yeah,
is the
again,
direction
that
you're
speaks,
going.
yeah, just again, that speaks to, I'm aware of that. My thought was just, we have to unfortunately we can't come back in later and say, hey, we also need you to do this now, or at least we've experienced issues and y'all, I mean,
Every job description says something
I
that
hear you.
more can be.
We have also been advised on multiple occasions, even with those statements in, that we cannot make changes to the job description.
So let me put this more bluntly.
Yeah.
I think you need a better objective defined of what this position's supposed to look like before you can write this job description.
Is it actually like an economic development director, or
No.
is it XYZ plus this?
So the role is responsible for leading the efforts to implement the city's comprehensive plans and shall be appointed by a majority role. So what is their job? Their job is to execute our comprehensive plan.
Okay.
And then these are
That's not
examples.
necessarily a director of development though.
It can be whatever title we want it to be.
Okay, so
That's why.
all right, I'm making a point that I think that there's some pieces missing in this job description. And I think that based on all the arguments that we've had tonight, that we're looking at what we're trying to actually do as a community, that there just needs to be a few other maybe awareness conversations, to ensure that you're explaining the role to your fellow council people, in the best way possible. That
Can
would
I
be
be
my
tagged in?
tagging in.
All right, perfect. I'm gonna go up here. Let's stand up. All right. So I have a few points to make since I'm clearly off the table, so. So first things first with the job description, and this is coming from someone that has sat in a development position on the public side. If there's too many tasks on the job description, no one's gonna apply for it.
Right.
And right or wrong, no one's gonna apply for it, especially if there's a lot of blending between different roles. Say development services director, not an economic developer. Development service director, maybe they do some zoning, maybe they oversee some coding enforcement.
What's your name?
Chris Bontrager with
Okay.
Retail Strategies.
Thank you.
But so if there's blending in the roles, you're gonna lean more towards a development services director. But from a business attraction standpoint, economic developers aren't gonna apply for that position. So it needs to be clear what those tasks are. What I would suggest is, I know this makes it a little more long and drawn out. What I would suggest is find a search firm that specifically goes and does this. There's a bunch of them out there. There's some that specifically search for city administrators, city managers, development services. More what you guys are talking about without seeing the job description. Some of those roles are city manager roles. The CEO of your comp plan is your city manager or your city administrator, and then those jobs trickle out. Because economic development services, those are usually branches of your comp plan. Planning
We
and
don't have the
zoning.
benefit of being able to have somebody to do each thing that needs to be done, so we've got to
Right.
come up with a blended role.
Right. I totally understand
Yeah.
that, especially with.
I'd love to have emphasis in different areas. And again, I opened this up by saying, I know it's a lot because I intended for everybody to say, slice this, cut this, remove this, get rid of this. So this was a, hey, here's examples of what it could be, and then you guys let me know what shouldn't be in here. But instead of trying to wordsmith up here and sit here and come up with sentences on the spot, it was go through and what needs to be removed. If somebody wants to take it and come back at our next meeting with something that we can actually, that's like, here we go, I'm good with that. Problem is, we've been talking about this role for over a year now. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Mayor, I think the organization has bigger problems, and that, one, I've suggested before, you need to do a wage survey, because we had a hard time finding a city secretary. We just happened to luck out that she was in Stephenville and wanted a job that was close to Stephenville. Otherwise, our wage for city secretary, I don't think we would have found somebody. We aren't getting any applications for building official. And before, we had a hard time finding a building official, and we raised the wage. But we have a building official where you got building inspector, building official, animal control, all these things tied together. And so, I think there needs to be some analysis of our organization, and, getting a development director with these tasks is getting a little bit ahead of things.
Michael, had we had a director of development that got that McDonald's inside our city limits instead of outside our city limits, it would have just added $54,000 to our budget. That this is a pure, I mean, absolute investment to solve for many of the issues that we've been facing. We're faced with people just making decisions and we have to go with it versus us being proactive. So this is a revenue generator. If it's not a revenue generator, they don't get to keep their job.
I just
I
think
mean, it's a revenue generator.
when you hire somebody at this wage, you're just gonna create problems in your organization, and I think you've got a bigger picture to look at. But personally, I'm just happy that I'm leaving in 5 weeks. So.
So, okay, with that in mind, how do we move forward? What do we want to do? Do we want to have to do this today? Does somebody want to take it?
Please don't,
Let's,
Bring it back next council.
Thank you, sir.
We'll go through it more. Try and make it where it fits more certain niche job descriptions with municipal government. Keeping and do these things.
Well, no, I did pull all of this from TML just for y'all's reference because I knew, yeah, but kind of
Okay,
molding it the right way.
but
Yeah.
that's still a super vague request. Who's going to work on this? Otherwise, it's gonna
Kelly
come
and I.
back and there will be the
DNR
same
look
thing.
into it.
Yep.
Okay, so we're gonna table this and bring it back to the next meeting.
Get Pam's input.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
suggest.
Yes.
Okay, are we good?
Yep.
We'll table this and move on? All right, let's move on to item 20. Discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding the purchase and implementation of project management software. Ms. Conlon.
Oh, super simple one. I just didn't honestly know if we needed to get council approval and thought it would be a good idea to do it. But Stacy and I have already talked a couple of times about project management software. We've got so many moving parts, and for most businesses, it's kind of a part of business. The part of doing businesses, especially when you have ongoing projects, is you have some kind of tool or resource to assist you in that project management. It can be an Excel spreadsheet, it can be a PowerPoint document, it can be Microsoft, a Microsoft product. But we've had several instances where there's something that we talk about doing, we say, okay, well, let's take action on that and do it later, and it just kind of falls through the cracks. And that's no blame of anybody's. I wouldn't be able to keep track of anything if I didn't have tools to help me do that. So the other benefit to that, thinking about our communication, is if we have a tracker, and it can have these kind of tools, can have multiple resources. So actually, Abra shared with us a super cool software where they actually had downloaded all the tasks from the comprehensive plan into this tracker, so that it doesn't sit on the shelf for 10 years and not get used, but you're actually going, okay, what's the next step? What's the next step? Who's doing it? By when are they doing it? And then if anybody has a question, they don't have to text the administrator or the city secretary. You can literally go onto the software, see exactly where we are in that task. Something needs to be added, you shoot an email to our secretary and say, hey, this item needs to be asked, or I think this item needs to be added. So it allows for additional communication between all of us, but it's not two-way. We're not adding to it, so we don't have any quorum issues there. I've already asked that question. But we can have particular projects that are going on, and we can also have our to-dos. What are the things that Dee and Kelly said that they were going to be working on something? So the week before the council meeting, Stacy may look and say, okay, Dee and Kelly, you said you were going to be working on this. Do I need to add it to the agenda, or are you not ready yet? So it's just another means of managing our business. So what I wanted to do was ask Stacy if she could look into, since she would be the primary user of it, what's the resource that she wants to use, that she's the most comfortable with, and then bring that to us as her recommendation.
Because we're gonna need to know pricing and. all that.
Exactly, yep.
And could this possibly be something that's in that Microsoft Teams that we keep getting notice?
Microsoft has something called MS Project. So there is a MS Project software. It is not fun.
Good Monday.
Yeah.
And honestly, one of the ones that Abra suggested was Invisio, and I've used it before, and it's overcomplicated and it's expensive.
Yeah.
And nobody used it because it's so time consuming that you're spending all your time entering instead of actually doing your work.
Monday.com.
What's that?
Monday.com.
Monday?
Yeah, it's really good. It's simple, it's cheap.
But I don't know that we can use it.
Yeah. So that was,
I just say, look at it.
that's what I want to do, is make sure that's okay with everybody, direct staff to do it.
Do we have any objections up here? All right, so look at it, bring it back to us. Okay, let's move on to announcements, presentations. Does anybody have any announcements or presentations?
Nope.
All right, consent
Oh.
agenda.
Wait, was that when we should, no, we're gonna talk about the other later. Sorry.
Okay, consent agenda. All consent agenda items are considered routine by city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member requests an item be removed and considered separately. Any items that we need to have removed and considered separately.
You know, I gotta find it. I don't have everything. Where is it? Where did I write it? What numbers are they? Okay, let's see. Their numbers what?
21 to 26.
21 to 26. On 23
You want to pull
and
one?
25.
Okay.
And 21, I've already talked to Stacy.
Anyone else want to pull any of these?
24.
24, okay? Anyone else want to pull anything? All right, so the consent agenda items are consider approval or other action regarding the minutes of the December 13th, 2022 special and regular city council meeting. Consider approval or other action regarding an accounts payable report for payments made during December 22. And approval or other action regarding the annual review and acceptance of the City of Glen Rose investment policy. That resolution number will be R 2023.01.10B. Do I have a motion to approve? Everybody made the motion. So I heard Mr. Freeze,
Good sign.
second by Ms. Harris. All those in favor, please raise your hands. 5-0. Okay, we'll move on to item 23. Consider approval or other action regarding the financial report for the month of December 2022. Ms. Walker.
Okay, let me get this computer where I can get two things. Sorry. It says November.
Oh, the action item.
Our agenda says December.
Yeah, I'm reading off the agenda. Actual.
Okay, ours, oh, yeah, ours is totally November and December dates on it. The deal I had, oh, it's over here.
Or
Yes.
The agenda
The agenda
itself.
action form.
The agenda action form.
The agenda overrides the agenda action form.
Yeah, okay, but that wasn't my deal. On page 232, at the top of the page, it says for the month, revenues have exceeded expenditures by about 53,000. And for the year, revenues have exceeded revenues by about
Yeah, that's
257,000.
supposed to be revenues have exceeded expenditures.
Okay, I wasn't sure on that. And that was the other question I've already talked to Stacy about, so that was all on that. So revenues have exceeded expenditures.
Any other questions on item 23? Ms. Walker, is that your only question?
That was the only question I had. I just wanted to make sure that's what that meant.
Do I have a motion to approve the financial report for the month of December 2022?
So moved.
All right, I have a motion from Mr. Goslin, a second from Ms. Walker. All those in favor, please raise your hands. 5-0 approved. Okay, item 24, approval or other action regarding amendments to the Glenrose Historic Farmers Market guiding principles. Mr. Freeze.
I guess my question is, why are we going back and now gonna have city enforcement on something that I thought the Historic Farmers Market Committee was gonna kind of handle?
They,
Ann Carver, chairperson of the Glen Rose Historic Preservation Commission. We are an all-volunteer, non-paid commission for the city of Glen Rose. Therefore, whenever we decide to take an action, we have to then direct which is Administrator Lemons, who is being code enforcement, to enforce it, because we do not have the authority to enforce it. Because you, the city council, tasked us with writing it, but not enforcing it. It falls under the city ordinance.
I thought part of the formation of this, y'all were gonna have a committee that was going to kind of monitor all yourself.
We do not have any committee whatsoever to monitor it. We have them come in and fill out the application. They therefore then have the little permit tag that is no charge. It is still free at the farmer's market. It is no charge to hang on their vendor space. That anytime, whether it is the county sheriff's deputies or whether it's the city police drive by, they can see they have that. If they don't have one, they can say, hey, you need to get one and go over and do it.
I think Michael had shared with me, Chrissy even volunteered or was able to provide them right there out there. But yeah, we have to, it's an enforcement.
It's an enforcement issue, and Chrissy can even do it with code enforcement, because she is a code enforcement officer.
So by putting it back to us, then it's staff.
It was, I apologize, this came back to us because I had folks reach out to me about issues that they had with lack of clarity around it. So for instance, they weren't sure who to reach out to. So if you look at the first page, we've added something to the first page that's like, hey, if you have questions or comments, here's where you need to go. So the bulk of the changes were either just clarifications, or giving additional information that had risen as questions that folks had, that this is given as a guide, and we identified that, oh, here's some additional information that they need that isn't found in this guide.
And here's the other item, that there are basically 6 of you, there are 5 of us. There was a code enforcement officer who was also our HPO officer at the time. So there was, and then there were all the vendors who helped write it. All of us looked at this. All of us read this. We all understood what we were saying because we all knew what we were saying. So when it got out there to folks who were not included in it, had not sat in on all those meetings, it wasn't as clear as all 25 of us thought it was. So we brought it back because we want to be very clear. To come and get your application for the farmer's market, you can click online. As soon as it's uploaded to the website, which is being worked on, or you can come to City Hall, to the building permit office. She has it in there. Actually, I believe they're in the little baskets outside. Pick it up, fill it out, turn it into her, and she will print you a card, and she being Jody. That's it. Turn in your paperwork with it, and that's it. It needed that much more clarification to others outside the 25 of us.
Fresh eyes looking at it.
There
without
was a
that
question I
experience,
had
yeah.
when I was reading this. Their card, did I miss it in here? Are they required to keep that card, their permit? Did I miss it?
It's here.
When I read through it?
Yeah,
It's in there.
Okay.
They have to
Yeah,
have
it
it
says
on
under
the
display.
Yes, so
if you look on page.
if code enforcement or Buck or somebody drives by, they can see this. I believe this year they
It's good
are.
for a year, right?
Yes, so it's good from calendar January 1 to calendar December 31st. And I had to think of what the last day of the year was. And I believe this year, I think they're some kind of bright yellow. Next year, they might be hot pink. I mean, they're gonna be where they don't actually have to look for them. They can be able to see them, see them from the street. So that was kind of what this was. This was just kind of a housekeeping because we all knew what we were talking about.
Okay.
And, we have an ordinance that addresses vendors. And we amended our historic preservation to recognize that they have oversight of this. But I'm not aware of an ordinance that that you can do anything with enforcement on this. These are guidelines. It's public opinion. It's not
And what's the point in doing it?
I'm not aware of a tool. I mean, my understanding, there was a real reluctance to be heavy-handed with the farmer's market because that predates the city. But,
Well, you may be correct on that, but the city council asked the historic preservation at that meeting in December that predated our comprehensive plan to take the farmer's market, come up with a set of rules and regulations that we could follow and that we could enforce. We had the vendors come in and do it. Nothing was said at any given time that you weren't gonna try to enforce this because it was a directive from city council. So if you're not gonna enforce it, I'm gonna be like the rest of everybody else.
We spent a lot of time on this, a lot of energy. For what?
So do we just need to draft an ordinance? I thought we had
you
ordinance
attached
too.
it to the ordinance that was already on the books, because if you go to the ordinance and there's a little click down on that ordinance that brings you over to this, that it's connected to the ordinance that we already had on the books.
That's what we need to see. If
You
it's
go to
not,
Muni
yeah.
Code and click on the historic
So
pres-
if there's not an enforcement side, we need to fix that.
Right, we need
We
to
have a
fix
lot
it.
of policies and procedures that don't have enforcement
Okay.
sides to them.
So we need to, so our next steps are gonna be,
Sure, it's enforceable.
yeah, if we don't have an ordinance in which this is attached to, then we need to bring that to the next.
It is, or, I believe it is,
It's part of
It was
the,
tied to that one ordinance.
yes, it is tied to the farmer's market ordinance.
So then it should be enforceable.
It isn't, I would think so, but then again, I'm a non-paid volunteer for the Historic Preservation Commission.
all right,
A very valuable one.
we just need to review and make sure that there is enforcement ability, and if not, then we need to,
Your work will not be for naught,
yes.
I promise you.
Any
To
other
go
questions?
down in the annals of Somerville County history.
Because I live in Somerville County and not in the city. Ask Mr.
Go
Moore.
down in the city of Glenrose history too.
All right.
Okay, and then the next item, do you need me to help? I'm so sorry, Mayor. I
Well-
apologize. I'm trying to move ahead.
Yeah, I've been trying to do that online. Any other questions?
On
that?
24.
No.
All right,
Good with it, yeah. Yeah, we can't go to the next one yet.
can't go to the next one. We have to do them one at a time. All right, so on 24, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
A motion from Ms. Walker, a second from, second from D, Ms. Conrad. All those in favor, please raise your hand. 5-0 approved. All right, let's move on to item 25, approval of their action regarding amendments to the Glenrose Historic Farmers Market application, Ms. Walker.
Okay, the question is, there's no resale of anything. And you made it real clear, you know, it's homemade stuff and all of that kind of stuff. People need to require documents. Why do we have a ATF license as a required document?
Because if you're gonna come down.
Reselling, they can't resell
Make
bullets.
bullets.
They make bullets.
They have to have
Bullets.
homemade bullets. There are reloads. So you have to look at that aspect of it.
I thought, I didn't.
And I don't know that these were really amendments. I think they were corrections.
That's right. There were like two items that were together. So like it said, eggs and baked goods were together in one. And so this was just okay, let's fix these spacings.
Well, I just noticed that ATF has.
Well, ATF is the reloads.
Okay,
Any other questions
that
on
answered
one?
that. That's my only question.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the amendments to the farmers market
So
application?
I was gonna say, can I make it?
A motion from Mr. Joslin, second from Ms. Walker. All those in favor, please raise your hand. 0 approved. All right, let's move on to staff reports. First one, Public Works Director report.
What about, oh, did we already do
That's part of your consent agenda.
26? Oh, okay, never mind. Good, thank you.
Jim, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Do not.
Any questions? Any questions for Mr. Holder?
He's 27.
Nothing, no conversation at all from Barnes.
One thing about those reports, excuse me,
Oh, wait, yeah, I meant to say that. So pursuant to the Open Meetings Act, these reports can only be reports. We can't direct action. We can't really ask questions.
not supposed to be a
yeah.
discussion.
Because it violates the Open Meetings Act if we don't specifically outline what's in there. Just report is too vague. So last month, when staff was directed during staff reports, absolutely should not have happened.
So, and Stacy has done some research on reports.
We can't have dialogue at
You
all?
can't direct staff.
Oh, okay,
But
okay.
dialogue
You
is all.
can't have discussion, so it'd be the same as a citizen's general discussion because they're so vague. For you to be able to discuss or deliberate amongst yourselves, then we would have to specifically list everything that's in our staff report.
So you can ask clarification questions.
Right.
But you can't have
You would
discussions.
have, you need to treat
or-
the same as a citizen's general discussion.
Like if it's a specific estate or whatever that's on this, we can ask, like I heard somebody ask, have you talked to Barnes lately? He can ask that, can he? Because that is in the report.
Ask and answer but y'all can't
No discussion.
deliberate it
Oh.
then after that. We can't get off into rabbit holes on it.
Okay.
Okay.
It would
We
be.
can't deliberate and we can't direct staff.
Yes, we can't do that in staff
Oh,
reports.
that's gonna be fun.
Right. I have one quick thing for Mr. Holder. Page 295, if you could just update us on the conversation with Chad Lee about the noise complaints, because I think it's significant if we're gonna be using this firm again about their deliveries.
295?
Right.
Page 295, Valley View Street reconstruction.
So there was a complaint that the contractor that was awarded the contract at Tuscan Village, the complaint was he was working at 1 AM on Christmas Day.
Christmas morning.
So turns out he wasn't doing construction work, but he was delivering his equipment. So he finished working at 5, drove to Big Springs to get equipment that he would need the following day, and then turned around and drove back. Got back at 1 AM. I think this was the night, it was like 10 degrees. And so he was offloading his equipment up there with the beepers and everything. So,
Oh, no.
They weren't happy.
yeah,
I mean, I don't blame them, but.
right.
But anyway, and I reached out to them and called them, he didn't return my call, but, you know, these are things we need to consider when we're looking at these guys for the future, so.
Any other questions from Mr. Mulder?
Jim, could I just have a simple request? You have pumping capabilities of 3.5 million per day. That is this is on page 294. It's a combined figure representing several counties' daily pumping capability and additional production from the 5 wells. Can you do just a little bit of digging and see what is our pumping capacity?
That's where
What is our pumping capacity?
There you go.
From our well?
It says 3.5 million gallons per day.
That's combined with Water District and our wells.
So you don't know, but you'll find out?
But he can't answer.
I didn't, I'm asking the question. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Have we heard anything different on Rock Ridge Estates?
They demolished about 140 feet of the wall that was leaning. They took that down and they're in the process of rebuilding that.
Per proper engineering specs?
It still doesn't jive with the plans that were provided, but it's not far off.
Almost there.
Baby step.
Any further questions?
The engineer called me today. Nobody will return his calls, and he's concerned about that project, and so he might withdraw permission. So we got issues there.
That we didn't move forward.
Yep, well, there you go.
Great idea for not moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
How does he have some houses being built right now? I'm sorry.
Anything else for
Thank you,
Mr.
sir.
Holder?
Thank you very much.
All right, next report. Police Department report. Chief Martin, do you have anything you'd like to add? Any questions for Chief Martin? All right, let's move on to item 29. Building and Planning Department report. Mr. Lemons, anything you'd like to add?
No, ma'am.
Any questions for Mr. Lemons?
Just a statement of appreciation that we've still got a good amount of work flowing through, considering the fact that we don't have a building official. So our numbers could have tanked and they haven't, so it's wonderful.
Jody's just a trooper, and about half of my time, I think, is spent on building department.
Yeah.
And I am trying to find somebody.
Okay. Next, item 30, Code Enforcement Animal Control Report. Mr. Lemons, anything you'd like to add?
No, ma'am.
Any questions for Mr. Lemons? All right, number 31, Convention and Visitors Bureau Director Report. Ms. Harris, anything you'd like to add?
You're going faster than my computer can keep up.
She's not wrong.
Okay,
And I'm
any
trying to get
questions?
down to where my notes are.
Questions for Ms. Harris?
I like how you now have your constant contact email going
I'm
out.
trying to get
and that
down to
constant
there.
contact info. That sounds like Angel's doing a good job.
Are we on 31?
Good hire.
Yes. Yeah, that,
Okay,
yeah.
page 320, I had a question. 320.
Tell them to do anything.
Oh, yeah, at the top it says January 2023 totals. Was that supposed to be December?
Yeah.
Wrong month.
Yeah, because
Well-
I've got December 2022, and December, it should have been December 2023.
2020.
Not
It's
here.
not here.
Mom, we're in January.
Yeah, we can't see the date on page 319. It's December 22 something.
It's
Oh.
December 2022.
We should have 2021 and
2019.
2022, right?
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
December 2020. Yeah.
319 is
December
21.
2022 instead of January
Yeah.
2020.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other
Nice
questions?
prepping.
All right, let's move on to city administrator report. Mr. Lemons, anything you'd like to add?
No, ma'am.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Lemons? No questions?
Nope.
Okay, move on to item 33, city secretary's report. Ms. King, anything you'd like to add? No, ma'am. Any questions for Ms. King?
15,000 questions for her.
Yeah. Start with one.
You said the website you're in 8 weeks?
I'd say that's a long
At max.
estimate, yeah. They sent me a first design and I was underwhelmed with it. And so I sent them some more photos because we just had one that didn't have a lot of color to it, so I sent them some more photos. Of course, I've had the holidays, found out that our designer was in a car accident over the holidays and he's fine, but he's dealing with some of that, so he's
Okay.
also a little bit behind. I told him that's fine, but
Got it.
hopefully, because we don't have a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
we'll get the conversion done and then it's, the pages are easy,
Awesome.
to build. So hopefully soon. That was a long estimate. So,
Okay, any other questions for Ms. King? Okay, we'll move on to mayor and council member reports. Report on meeting with Somerville County Water District. I was there. Mr. Freeze was there, Mr. Johnson was there. Ms. Conrad tried to be there, but we couldn't.
But it ran
was
out? I ran out, because it was a quorum.
It was a quorum. It was a non-productive meeting. And that's really all I have to say about it. They had basically zero interest whatsoever in changing the way that they do things because the way that they do things has always worked. They tell me numerous times that the door is always open and we can always talk to them as long as Kevin Taylor says that we can, is basically the way that it was presented to me. But Mr. Freeze, do you have a different opinion of how that meeting went?
I think we have an open door for a February meeting if we want to have a joint meeting after visiting with Kevin, one more time. And then just, pressing him that, we need to have a joint meeting if we wanted to, if we wanted to continue down that road.
Well, basically what happened was their entire board was there and their argument was, well, the committee that you guys wanted, y'all are here, so why don't we just hash through these issues? So they wanted to hash through the issues with their entire board, but just a portion of our board.
And that's a lengthy, that's gotta be a multiple conversation. This is, some things complex, some things not, but we gotta, it's not a hash it out here kind of situation, right? Okay.
And we couldn't, I don't think we could have obligated this city to have done anything. It was handled poorly.
Mr. Johnson, anything you'd like to add?
I concur with what Mr. Freeze just said. So.
Well, I had one request from our consultant that we notify them about the legislative. I guess that doesn't really fit here. So I was just thinking of it, but.
All right, anyone else have any mayor or council member reports? All right, then we are going to recess at 9:16 and then we'll reconvene in executive session at 9:25.
20 is good. Time to go back and do that.
Quick.
That card is long, I'm gonna stick it in everywhere.
Okay, let's move on to item 36, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding item discussed in executive session, personnel, city administrator. We are going to direct staff to schedule interviews as discussed. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All righty. Is anyone have anything else?
No, this computer shut down.
If you no further business
It's done.
before me, I adjourn this meeting at 9:41.
And it's like, this night is over. Get her.